What's up, YouTube? It's your boy JD, aka Mr. December, and I am here with a special treat for you all in this video. Listen, it's been a lot of talk going around about black men in the church and why there has been a decline in the black church with our men over the last several decades. So, just to give a little bit of background, just for the ones that may not know or were not watching, last week, Chantel and River did an excellent live stream saying the black church is keeping women single. And in that, we kind of got into the discussion about why black men are not in the church and why black men are leaving the church and why the church is in the condition that it is. And, I'll just be honest with you, these days and times, people are kind of reluctant to hear anything about Christianity, pastors, or the church because of the negative stigma. But we want to try to bridge that gap to come to some kind of conclusion and understanding to see what needs to be fixed in the future going forward. So I have a special guest with me today. Y'all see him on the screen. I know y'all seen him in these YouTube streets. We've got the one, the only Game Changer in the building. Say something to the people, Game Changer.
Hey, salute to everybody. Thanks for having me here. I think that this is a much-needed discussion, and thanks for bringing me on board.
Excellent. You can come here anytime you get ready. So, Game Changer, you were there, man. So, you want to kind of give your brief overview of how that conversation got going when you and I were on the panel together?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Chantel and Riva, they were, talking about why. Well, you brought up the subject of, black men seem to have a diminished interest in the church. I think they were initially talking about how the church isn't teaching the proper values and foundation to black women. And you took it to a different direction, that the men aren't there, and I think that, and I gave my thoughts on it. Basically, the Protestant portion of the religion is, in my opinion, and it was founded to be this way, so I see why it has mass appeal, but I think it's a little too loose in teaching the foundation, the values, with when you compare it to all the other Abrahamic religion, Muslims, Catholics and Judaism. They all have strict guidelines, where the Protestants seem to be a lot more loose, which is a good thing. However, it has a negative side effect, because some people want that rigid structure. At least, especially the men do. So yeah, that's what I brought to that conversation.
Yeah, and like you said, it was an excellent conversation, and it is much needed. I think that part of the reason why the structure is not like it used to be in more of our Protestant churches is because, let's just be honest. There is we've grown a little bit more sensitive over the years, right? Back then, you could get corrected and then you not feel a way about it. And now it's hard to give even constructive criticism, because I think sometimes people get their feelings hurt so easily. And just coming at it from a pastor's point of view, you don't want people to leave the church. You know what I'm saying? And you don't want to make people upset, but at the same time, we have to give that correction where correction is due. But a lot of times people don't want to hear it. What do you think about that? Do you think there's any truth to that?
No, definitely. Listen, the other factions that I mentioned have 1,000-year history, so they don't really worry if 10 people were to leave. The Catholic Church in most any neighborhood, or excuse me, most any major cities are huge. And they have schools, they have hospitals, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, if they lost 10 tithers, I'm pretty sure that the priest, isn't really concerned, especially since he's backed by the Vatican, which have been developing for literally over 1,000 years. So I get that. But however, the Baptist church, particularly the Black Baptist church, there's a need for each and every single individual member. So a lot of compromises and concessions are made, which is a little off-putting. I'll give an example from the movie world. So when you think about the movie Color Purple, and you think about Shug Avery's character. Now, Shug Avery is the antithesis of what somebody wants in their church and representing their church. And worse off, she was the pastor's daughter. And yet he eventually embraced her because the church had very few people in the pulpits. Everybody was at Harpo's, and she just brought in the congregation, in that one scene. Now, granted, he was able to get people there, but he had to make a compromise and concession. And over the years, so many of those have been made that it's not really. So here's the thing, brother. Black men want to not only have a virtuous wife, they want to have a system, have a place that will assure that their daughters become virtuous as well, and their sons become moral, responsible, and strong. They want that. That's what they want from the church. That's what I got out of church, growing up. And the concern is that the modern churches don't really produce that for either the men or the women.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. And I was talking to a pastor buddy of mine a couple of weeks ago, man, and just the lack of things for men to learn how to be men and learn how to be a productive member of society and learn how to lead and provide your family in a Christian way, and also to your point about making concessions. You brought up the movie Color Purple. I was kind of thinking about Aretha Franklin and her father, C.L. Franklin. He caught a lot of slack behind Aretha Franklin not wanting to sing gospel anymore and wanting to sing, secular music, but he supported her. Matter of fact, a lot of her shows, he was there front row center, and he caught a lot of slack for that, for making concessions for his daughter. And I think that's around the time where we kind of started seeing the shift coming in. I mean, and another thing too, on the other side of the spectrum, just to give another layer to this thing. I know a lot of people that were devout churchgoers, faithful members, but then they had the pastor or somebody in the church, lashing out at them and over criticizing them for some things that may not have even been true. And you would be surprised to really see how many people told me that that's part of the reason why they never stepped foot back in the church. But just to reel it back in just a little bit, black men in the church. One of the comments that stuck out to me that I saw on the live stream with Chantel and Riva was men are territorial, right? And I get that, but that was the reasoning of why they were saying that men are not in the church like they used to be, because men are territorial and don't want to fall under the leadership of another man. What do you think about that?
I'm not going to entirely go against it, because it's coming from that was coming from a woman's perspective. I think it was a woman that made that comment, and I know that Chantel and Riva backed it. I mean, I do understand that women are attracted to men in power and men in leadership positions, so they kind of see it that way. But it doesn't necessarily mean that men are repelled by being under someone's tutelage, because we're not. We wouldn't have armies if, we wouldn't have private sergeants, lieutenants, we wouldn't have a chain of command if we just was, of the type to where we say, oh no, I'm not going to follow anybody's leadership. We're perfectly comfortable in doing that, especially I am in the church, too. If someone has something that I can learn from, or I can, better myself, or they have access to the congregation. I work with a friend of mine, one of my best friends from high school. He grew up to be a pastor, and I work with him from time to time for youth programs and things like that. I don't have any problem with, being under his leadership because he has a congregation and I have a technical know-how to, help people. So I don't see a problem with that. Maybe there are men who do that, but I truly doubt it. I mean, I know the black church has this reputation of the pastor, turns his, pulpit into a harem. I mean, I haven't seen that, with my friend and my the other church that I attend from time to time is my grandmother's church, and the pastor's over 90. So, I don't think he's getting down like that. I haven't seen that, but I do know that the reputation is there, and I can't imagine too many guys like, oh no, I don't want to bring my church or my wife to this church because the pastor is so handsome, and I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't seen that either, but I will say this: I think you're a little bit less likely to see that in a lot of smaller churches. Some of the mega churches around, you might be. I'm not saying it happens all the time, but you're probably a little more likely to see that in some of these mega churches. And another thing to your point, men have always had structure and no problem following and leading and taking direction from another man. But I think part of the issue is that the older generation kind of failed us a little bit in the sense that we weren't taught how to be leaders in the church, because just from my experience, a lot of times we weren't allowed to do anything because we were so young. But then when the older people started to get older and couldn't do it, and it was time to pass it on, we didn't know how to do it. So I think that that intimidates a lot of people, a lot of men in particular. I'll give you a prime example. Pre-pandemic, it was a gentleman that came in with his wife every week, and we had a meeting with the men in the church. We had some things we needed to do around the church, and man, that brother was just so smart and giving all kind of perspectives that we really didn't think about or go that deep into it. And I went to him after the meeting was over, and I said, man, I seen you around the church, man, I need to make you a deacon. And he said he'd think about it, and I haven't seen him since. So I don't know if sometimes that intimidates men. Do you think that plays a part into it?
I don't know. He may not have had the time to be fully committed, or he might not have even been religious. A lot of people want to help, but they're not particularly a believer. So a deacon would because it exists. Like, people want to help the community, and having a congregation is a good way to have access to the community that they want to help in different ways. However, if he was a deacon and he's not particularly, religious, he's agnostic or atheist or something like that, then he probably would be taken back by that offer. It could be a number of things, yeah.
See, that makes sense. See, that's why I got Game Changer on the line, y'all. That's why I got Game Changer on the line. But I want to touch on another thing that we were talking about a lot of women being attracted to leaders, and the stigma that women want the pastor. I'll give you a prime example of the experiences I've had with it. And to me, in my experience of being a minister and a pastor, that has not been my experience most of the time. Has it happened? Yes, but the times that it didn't happen, I can count on one hand. But prime example, I was dating a young lady, and she went to a church service with me, and it was a female minister there, and we linked up and we met, and the three of us were talking, and she looked right over and was like, "Hey, every woman wants to pastor, right? Every woman wants to be with a pastor. You got to be careful when you with a pastor." And I'm sitting there looking like, "Lady, everything is good, and you're causing dissension between me and her, but a lot of people really think like that, and whether it's true about a particular pastor or not. And I will say that there are a lot of pastors, and we know a lot of them or heard of a lot of them in bigger churches that do abuse the fact that women like men in leadership, and they try to take advantage of it and use it for their gain. I'm not that type to do that, but that stigma rolls all the way down, and that was that female minister saying that to me was really really off-putting. And I was thinking, I'm like, well, if I was just a regular guy, that would make me feel a way about going to church. Because now you're telling me my woman's gonna want the pastor.
I I don't know. That to me, it's not unusual for women to want guys at the top of the structure. Whether it's the captain of the football team, the leader of a fraternity, or something like that. That's just you're the leader of an organization. What is unusual and what's kind of unique to Black religious organizations is that the pastor is single and unmarried. So I think that that's where it comes from, and this isn't just a Protestant thing. Malcolm X was single and unmarried until Betty, and he was deeply dedicated to his craft, and but yeah, he did mention that at in his autobiography. I think he's like 6'4" and considered handsome, and the ladies were interested, but he just he played it a certain way as a result of it, because yeah, I can get that being a problem. I as far as a person who's not in that leadership position, would that concern me? No, not too much. There's always going to be guys that my girl in particular, she talks about Michael B. Jordan as being an extraordinarily handsome guy. I bet, if she ever met the guy, I wouldn't say, "Oh no, you can't meet him," because of that. It's not something I concern myself about too much. But if there are guys that do that, I couldn't say. I will say this: most American Black men are single and childless.
Right.
So that shouldn't be too much of a concern, that because you don't have a wife to worry about losing.
Good point.
So
very good point.
There has to be something else going on.
Well, that's absolutely the reason why we're here, to try to peel back the onion a little bit to figure this thing out. Interesting point. The majority of Black men are single and childless. So, do you think if Black men would get back into the church, and the women are at the church to say they are looking for a good man, would that not be the start of seeing more two-parent households?
It would be, but the problem that we were expressing on Chantel's channel was that these are not the kind of women that we want. Largely, they're the same type of women. Okay, so here's the thing, and this is what I address on my channel and others address on their channel, and that is, the Black community isn't producing quality women, and by quality women I mean quality wives and mothers. Most wait too long to even consider being a wife and mother, meaning that they wait to the point to where fertility becomes an issue. So that's pretty much out of the question, especially for a man in his early 40s like myself. Like, I can't really get with a woman my own age, for that reason. So you see these women in church, and it's like, hey, it's not really much I can do with that. It's not, in my opinion, the modern church is not really a good place to find a quality wife mother, and it used to be. You could go, and it was almost guaranteed that you would find a person of at least these virtues. a woman that you could trust to not think of the pastor in that way if she's with you, a woman that you can, trust to be, without children already, a woman of childbearing years without children already, with virtues. Like you can trust these things now, not so much. And I know that you're in the South. Well, I don't know, but I hear your accent, and I'm in California. But that's something that I think that's universal throughout the Black churches.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And that talking point that you just brought up from the other live stream, one thing that stuck out is Chantel said that she was taught not to look at boys and not taught how to work with the man or be in alliance with the family and the man. All they were taught to do was go to school so you don't need a man. So from what I'm gathering, it sounds like the church needs to one get back to teaching the younger women what it is to be a wife, and to teach them what it is to work with the man, right, and be in cooperation with the man, and then we need to try to train up some men to get back into the church. So maybe the women in the church will be women that men in the church, the men in the church will be somebody that the women would want, and vice versa. Does that make
Absolutely.
sense? What I'm saying?
No, absolutely it does, and it would have that effect. Now, I fear that the initial problem would be, as you described before, you want to keep all of the members of the congregation, and that's something that a lot of women don't want to hear, because what it does is it takes power and control out of their hands and puts
Mhm.
it in, you know, someone else's hands, the her future husband's hands, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There is a certain comfort that a lot of women get from saying, okay, all I have to do is get good grades and everything is going to work out. You would be essentially taking that comfort from them and saying, you have to depend on your femininity, and you have to depend on your piety, not just to, the Lord, but to your mate. And yeah, you do run the risk of losing female members with
Yeah,
that message.
yeah. And I do see that there could be a lot of pushback behind that, because, like we were saying earlier, about correction and criticizing, right? It will be a great deal of criticism and correcting, that comes out of that. But I think that we can do it out of a place of sincerity, if we come to good faith and not just try to tongue lash everybody, but try to understand that we really care, and this is why we're doing this. What we're doing is not working. It's
Hmm.
not working, and it has not worked. So I do see where there would be a lot of backlash, because look what happened to Monique when she asked ladies not to wear a bonnet to the store.
Exactly, exactly. We have a culture where both sides, the men and the women, are very comfortable with their newfound freedoms and not really comfortable with the responsibilities that come with it. You know.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, game changer. I got one last question that I want to ask you. I know we
Sure.
kind of touched on a lot, and this is. I'm pretty sure we'll be getting together again.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
just to, this is just kind of to get started peeling the onion back or whatever. But one last question that I want to ask you. Overall, from what you see, why have black men ultimately left the church?
Um, I guess if I had to put it under one umbrella, I would say that church was an extension of the community, and the community is an extension of the family. Absent the family, and as I mentioned, black men are single and childless. Their church didn't really seem, necessary at that point. The reason why I would go to church more often. Okay, here's what I gather, and this is just looking at my father and my uncles and grandfather and stuff like that. I think that when they took me to church, they weren't going for themselves. They could read the Bible at home, right after the game. I think that they were just taking me there, if that makes sense. And they were taking my sister there, and they were taking their wives there. They weren't, going for their own edification. I think that that is why we went in the first place. Now that we're a generation that's absent these things, absent, family, wife, children, et cetera, they're like, why go? I don't have anyone to take. Perfect example. Because I don't know if you noticed about me, I'm a nerd, and I wasn't a very athletic kid. So my father wanted me to get into activities. So what he did was, and this was through the church, was he started a Boy Scout troop through the church. And so because he was a member and because he attended all this time, and he knew the pastor allowed him to use the church on Saturdays as a gathering place for, our little troop. And we had maybe like anywhere between 10 and 20 boys in it at any given time. So, this was the reason. This was just a bunch of fathers getting together. It was a place where you can do stuff like that. So I think that the fathers really went because they were fathers, and they had full custody of their kids and things like that. Absent that, I see less of a motivation for a lot of brothers to go.
Wow.
And that's not something that you as a pastor, has control. This is a social issue. The social situation of social circumstances of a black man has changed so much to where it's affecting.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man, you just dropped the bomb on us right there. Absent the family, absent the church. Man, thank you so much, Game Changer. I knew you were the right one to start this conversation with. Listen, y'all, if you have not checked out Game Changer on YouTube, his link will be down in the description. Go subscribe. Go show some support over there, y'all. Game Changer is a brilliant brother. He be out here in these YouTube streets. So, Game Changer, do you want to tell the people a little bit about your channel before we go?
Okay, well, sure, thanks. Yeah, like the pastor said, I'm all about restoring the black family. Now, sometimes I may come across a little harsh, and that's because I do understand that in order to do this, that it will require discipline on both sides. But it's nothing but love. My ultimate goal is to get the black family together into some kind of order.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Game Changer. Yo, they call him Game Changer because he changes the game, y'all. That's what's up. But look, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Are we getting it right? Are we getting it wrong? Is this a good place to start? Let us know what you think. Give this video a thumbs up, and we will be back with some more content for you all. Take care. Peace.
Peace.